Hello, welcome to Insects for Life, the podcast of ICIPE, the International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology. I am Liz Nganga. Insects are among the most successful organisms on Earth, and this is partly due to their unique sensory system. We are speaking to Merit Getahun, ICIPE's resident neuroscientist, about our exciting research in this field. First, Merit, please tell us about yourself and your inspiration into science.
My name is Merit Getahun. I was born in a place called Bora in East Shore in Ethiopia. Grown up there up to elementary, up to grade 8, and then after that I moved to a place called Asala to attend my high school. From there I joined Addis Ababa University.
How did your interest in sciences begin?
This is quite fascinating because in our family there was no one has went to university, but myself I was just always ask questions. I always like to debate with my family and challenge those, so many stories. So I think that's the way it started, but I didn't see any technologies or anybody who kind of doing science, but but just by myself, get curious, and then I was also good at school, so I just continued, I want to be good at school, so that is what I found.
Your bachelor's and master's degrees, what did you choose to study and why?
So I studied in my bachelor biology and chemistry, and the reason why I chose them, when you grow in rural, of course, in every way, you see mostly, biological entities like livestock, crops, of course, also insects. So that inspire you to really understand how do they, they do all their activities. But the chemistry one at that time, I didn't know it because it's a bit an abstract. But I like chemistry. I was good at school, so I was getting the top grade in chemistry. So that's why. When it comes to insect, when I grew up in our place, the number one disease we have is malaria. You go to clinic, there is no diagnostic. Oh, you got malaria, so you get it, all the time. And you also see when our crops are eaten by insects, like we have stem borers, and also like when you store your grain again, it will be eaten by store pests. So that all the time we try to control, to apply, pesticide, insecticide to control all of those things. So that kind of, inspires you something to study them, how we can, especially how to manage them. And we also had a lot of butterflies. I remember, when we were grown up, we have a big land where you keep our animals, then you run and you chase butterflies, we don't have a sweep net, anything, but then you rub on your, on your face, then we count the color, so that who caught more butterflies. So I still know them a long time.
This is Insects for Life podcast. We are having a conversation with ICIPE scientist Merit Getahun about insect neuroscience. You obtained an amazing opportunity to study at the Max Planck Institute for Chemical Ecology in Germany. How did this chance change your career?
Max Planck is a very known scientific institute where you study basic science. So in this institute, I started to see, not to chase insects or to, whatever, to kill, but to really understand how do they interact with the environment. So that using the nervous system, so that is a field called neuroetology. So that is the interesting things. You go deep into insects, how do they, as I said, interact with themselves, with the environment, not even that, even how different neurons communicate inside. So it's really very basic thinking of science.
Why is neuroscience important in terms of understanding insects, managing them, or exploiting them for beneficial purposes?
Neuroscience is like, as I said, is a study of a given organism. You start from molecule all the way to a behavior. So that, for example, when we consider the sense of smell or olfaction here, so it's a really important part, especially when to say, whether you want to control or exploit the beneficial aspect. But beyond that, you also understand the algorithm there, how do they do it? So you have odor that is emitted from the insect or from the host or anything that has to travel through the wind and air and get access into the insect olfactory system, in this case the antenna, but the sensillum. And then it's carried by so many molecules, so the binding proteins, then goes to the receptor, activate neurons, there is a cascade of reaction there. It's fascinating biology you understand. It's not only biology, but interface of so many things. There are synapses, which are electric, chemicals. So, it's even understanding the mechanism will also enable you to, problem solving issues. Once you know that, also the issue of the odors are emitted, not all of them are important. So you really, in that system, by studying neuroscience, you will find out which odors are more important than the others and for what.
I understand that insects are the most successful organisms on Earth, and it's because of their sensory system. Could you explain a little bit about that?
I will explain the olfactory. When we say sensory system, there are so many. But when you see the insect olfactory system, the olfactory system is one of the most sensitive. If you compare with our analytical tool we have, you can't compare them. The insect olfactory system is so much sensitive. So one of the things is, if you see they have two signaling pathways or transduction mechanisms. One of them is like when the odor binds to the sensor, it can directly activate the system, so that it goes to the brain, so that the brain can react. It's called direct activations. But the another one that we have also is when the odor binds to the receptor or sensor, it also activates secondary messengers, like CMP or stuff. That makes it more sensitive. So the insects have the combination of these two that makes them fast as well as sensitive. But the mammals, they have only the second one, which is the involved secondary messengers.
What are some of your projects at ISIPE?
Trying to understand how vectors, like especially vectors of livestock, interact with their host livestock, and also using the sensory, using the sense of smell, so that I study the vector-host interactions. I also study how that interaction is modified, when a cow or a camel is sick, so that we can, so that in the process we develop some tools that enable us to control the vectors such as attractant, repellent, even for diagnostic or therapeutics.
You have recently published a groundbreaking paper on the CSS Sensory System. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
ISIPE has a flagship project when it comes to CSS, like a repellent. They have really identified repellent odors a long time ago. And now it's developed into product, but we didn't know the mechanism, how those things are working, why this is repellent, why this is attractant. So my interest was to really understand the mechanism of repellency and also attractant. So what we did is, as I told you, like insect olfactory system is orchestrated. We have sensillum, we have many other proteins like odor binding proteins. These are transporters. The water coming from the environment bound to them will be transported into the sensor, which is found on the dendrite of a neuron. So what we found that, attractant and repellent, they activate different pathways or different part of a neurons of a sense of fly. So that's why when you activate this part of the neurons, that means if the fly is going for it. When it's activated this part of the fly is repelled. So that we have done. And we have also done, we have silenced it. Okay, we said these are important for this kind of behavior, and this one are important for this kind. So let's say, you have to really demonstrate those proteins are really involved. So for that, you need to silence those proteins and ask the fly again whether they do the same behavior like before or not. I think we have brought some new scientific environment to ISIPE. I can say, we were doing on odor coding, for example, at the neuron level, how those things are coded. Even we also went into the gene silencing to see the function. I think this is the way we should go forward in our, as I said, as Africa.
With neuroscience in insects being such a new field in Africa, what contribution have you made to capacity building?
Since I joined ECP, I trained 2 PhD students, although done in the neurobiology of insects. From one of them done neurogenetics, physiology, silencing. Others also did how the a fly make like a decision to make where to lay eggs. But I also have so many other master students, 4 master students. They also studied in the same line. Neurobiology is quite involves quite many disciplines. It's at interface of we have chemistry, neurobiology, and then behavior. So they really well equipped with a lot of techniques.
If somebody gave you 3 wishes, what would they be?
The number one is to have my own very nice equipped laboratory. Number 2, also want to have a very highly motivated, energetic, curious students and technicians, who share my interest. The third one is, of course, good health, energy, and then some curiosity.
Thanks to Merit Getahun for this inspirational conversation about insect neuroscience. For more information on ECP and our research, visit our website www.ecp.org. This podcast was produced and directed by Brian Mwashi of ECP.